Hello, and welcome to the Omega Beam number 23. I'm your host, Oren Merton, and we have a special edition of the Omega Beam for you. That's right, it's longer. Okay, it's not just longer. This entire episode, Golden and I talk about our experience at Comic-Con International, aka San Diego Comic-Con, aka SDCC, or aka just Comic-Con, because of all the comic book conventions that are held around the world in all kinds of places. This particular one, San Diego Comic-Con, aka Comic-Con International, is kind of the big daddy of them all, so it's often the one just referred to as Comic-Con. So this is a longer talk. We give you our flavor and experiences at Comic-Con. We don't go every minute of every day, but we do talk about 3 world premieres that we saw that are in the future television series or straight-to-video presentations. That those are more directly related to the sci-fi, fantasy, superhero, TV, and film and video mission of this podcast. So I hope you enjoy our discussion, and here we go. I am here with Golden, and it is after Comic-Con International, San Diego Comic-Con. Hi, Golden.
Hello.
I think I should start out by saying there's, in a sense, 2 Comic-Con experiences. I've been going for a few years now, and in the past, I've been able to get some of the really close hotels in what I have dubbed and others have dubbed Hotel-pocalypse, which is when you basically log online, get a random number, and try to get your hotel. So when you don't get a really close hotel, you end up in a further out either hotel or city. We were in Mission Valley, which is a number of miles away, but Comic-Con does have a shuttle that theoretically shows up every 15 minutes or half hour and takes you to and fro for free. So what did you think about staying in Mission Valley?
I didn't think it was bad at all. I mean, you did lose quite a bit of time on the bus ride. I think the advantage of staying closer to Comic-Con is you get a little bit more walking in.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're not actually walking. You're walking. When you're staying at Mission Valley or Hotel Circle, then you're walking to the bus.
Right.
They drop you off pretty close to the convention center. When you are close to the convention center, you get to walk from your hotel to the convention center, so you get a little bit more walking in, which I think actually would have probably been good, because otherwise you end up sitting in chairs for a very long time.
That is true, and I should also say that the general vibe, I think, of the people on the shuttles was pretty happy and excited. I mean, most rides, I think people were relatively chatty and upbeat.
Yeah, and everyone was polite when you got on the shuttle, or when the shuttle came to a stop, or the bus, we should say, because these are very large buses.
Right.
When you get off the bus stops. There's no one like pushing forward. The first row goes, then the second row goes, then the third row goes. No one has to say, this is how we are going to unload the bus.
Right.
It just happens.
Yeah, it should be mentioned that I was listening to a Neil deGrasse Tyson podcast before Comic-Con, and he was talking about sort of the Comic-Con experience and fandom and things, and he mentioned a really interesting statistic. He was quoting an article that I have completely forgotten the name of, but it was reporting on a study that has been done in San Diego using a number of years for gathering statistics, and it showed that during the time of Comic-Con, the crime rate in the city of San Diego drops. So you don't want to make too many assumptions based on that, but it is. You can make a very strong argument that the Comic-Con crowd is generally a peaceable crowd.
Yeah, they're just the crimes that are committed people don't know about. Like, I was talking to some people later on at the Masquerade where they were saying some guys on Wednesday night, when they went into the bathrooms and discovered the Deadpool toilet seat covers, toilet seat covers, that people were taking the actual entire box of the toilet seat covers because of the fact that they thought, oh, well, we can just go ahead and sell these on eBay. And I noticed on Wednesday, it would have been tempting. It was a great way for Fox to advertise.
Yeah, great marketing.
Said, this is all Fox could afford. And then you have Deadpool's face, which goes down into the toilet, and it says Deadpool 2, dropping soon on Blu-ray and digital. So you are literally dropping on Deadpool.
And it completely goes with the attitude of the movie and the way that they are sort of selling Deadpool as the character, that he's more crass and he's more about humor and not, sort of the epic, heroic, classical mythology saga.
It was funny. And then you're talking about the bus ride. So Town and Country Hotel had changed their sign out front that said, "No, I don't smoke, but I chew baka. Here's to Comic-Con." So I got the impression that whether you're in the immediate San Diego or you're outside of Mission Valley, that everyone is very welcoming of this crowd.
Right.
Which was nice.
It is. It's nice. It kind of gives you the feeling like the entire city of San Diego, at least the downtown area and the outside areas that are involved in some way, whether it be in the hospitality industry or the like, that they take it seriously, and it's not just a money thing, but that they get into the spirit of it as well. So I think that makes the whole experience better, and I really enjoy that. So Wednesday night isn't really a night for much programming. There is some. It's mostly the independent movies. I think the movie festival aspect of Comic-Con begins, but also there is preview night. We didn't see any of the previews there, but we did end up seeing quite a few premieres over the course of the convention. But that's also when they first open the exhibit hall. So having been to a number of conventions with their own exhibit halls and booths and things like that, how would you feel the Comic-Con exhibit hall compared?
Well, they're always fairly busy.
Right.
I think that I was glad to be able to go on Wednesday night when it wasn't quite as crowded.
Yeah.
It's big. A lot of exhibit halls are big, and I think you'd have to spend at least an entire day there if you really wanted to see everything in the exhibit hall.
Very true. And some of it there isn't much to see, in the sense that, say, the Warner Brothers, they have a huge booth, and so does Marvel, but it's not so much stock full of stuff as it has a few things, some posters and maybe some props. But mostly it's just a lot of room for lining up, because they tend to bring their celebrity casts out, put them behind tables, and then they just have a ton of room for people to line up and get posters signed and things like that. So there's not necessarily a ton to see when you're just walking past. So those booths don't take a ton of time, but there's a lot. If you really do buy comic books, even though the comic book part of Comic-Con has become very marginalized over the years, and that is something that hardcore Comic-Con people get quite upset about, that this used to be just for comics 20 years ago. But there's still so many booths selling comics from the last 60 plus years that you could, like you said, spend a whole day just going through their boxes to find every little issue that's there for sale or trade or whatever you've got. And there's a lot of cool booths where, like the TV shows, Walking Dead always has their photo op, where they have a big booth set up, and there's usually a sort of room or a diorama with zombies, and you can walk into it and take a picture with a zombie and things like that.
Well, and they had their experience too.
Right.
Which we got to see the Ready Player One experience, and we waited a whole 15 minutes for that.
Right.
Because it was Wednesday night. I wish that some of the other experiences had already opened. I know you wish that Good Place had been already set up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the Jack Ryan experience had been set up Wednesday night, where I could have at least gone over and registered so that I could have gone through early in one of the next days so that I could have done the whole VR thing that one of my other friends had told me about.
Yeah, and that's another part of the Comic-Con experience that we should mention. Kind of the Ready Player One experience that we went to, the Jack Ryan experience you were talking about, the Good Place sort of built town. They're not in the convention center. These are in the surrounding areas.
Anyone can go.
Yeah. And I think that's a great aspect about Comic-Con, is that it really does involve a lot of people outside those 150,000 who get tickets.
And then we didn't even go to any of the party things.
Right. There's I had David Rakin, I hope I pronounce his last name right, who's involved with Space Commander, which is one of the shows that had panels outside of the convention center in one of the satellite locations. He was explaining to me that there's the public Comic-Con that the fans and the panelists go to, and then there's the sort of secondary professional Comic-Con that happens in hotel rooms and parties and meeting rooms where, business is done. For those who've gone to professional conferences, I go to the NAMM show for the music industry, the music instrument industry every year. But those are very professional things where there's special rooms set up where people, they buy and they sell and they do things like that. Well, that kind of horse trading does go on here too, that a lot of the comic companies who don't meet their writing talent very often because they're just freelancers who are hired all over the country. They meet them here and they give out assignments and they do things like that. A lot of the entertainment industry holds parties for the press and for their celebrities so they can all mingle and they can talk about projects, and you have directors pitching projects, in back rooms and things like that. That is a whole other Comic-Con that we're not involved with. But there are public parties as well where, Entertainment Weekly might have this huge private party. But then they also may host, just a public get-together as well. And we didn't get tickets to because those are usually ticketed. And we didn't, get tickets to those. Those tend to be given out as promotions on their websites or in their magazines and things like that. But those are also part of the Comic-Con experience, just part that we didn't get to experience.
So that was, for the most part, Wednesday.
Exactly.
Then we get on the bus to go back to the hotel. Mm-hmm. Thursday, get on the bus, go back. We went pretty early, so
we did.
The bus line wasn't much, and the hotel next door, which was housing with the bus stop, was like handing out candy and also like hand wipe things that you could keep more sanitary during the day.
Yeah, candy and hand wipes were free, and then they also had a little station set up where they had water and stuff and snacks that was way cheap compared to what's at the convention center.
And then we're on the bus for the 6th annual musical Anatomy of a Superhero,
which is one of my very favorite panels. I saw it for the first time last year, and it's where they put composers of a lot of the tentpole hit movies, and they talk about their process, and they talk about how they do what they do and what they're thinking of, and they open it up to questions as well, and it's good. I mean, this is one of the things I love about Comic-Con is you get to meet, even if not in person, you get to see and hear the professionals who make the things that you love.
And then this was over at the hotel,
right? The Hilton, the Indigo Ballroom.
That was the only place that they checked bags.
Yeah, that's the only place we went that they checked bags. They do also if you're in the overnight Hall H line, but. We weren't in that one. That brings up another sort of part of the Comic-Con experience. Once you're experienced a little bit, you realize that to get the most out of Comic-Con in the limited time, because there's a million things you want to do all at the same moment, that you'll get the most out of it if you do as much as you can in the same rooms. So we actually ended up spending like half a day in the Indigo Ballroom. And then on Friday, we spent the entire day in Ballroom 20. And then on Saturday, we spent half the day in Ballroom 20. It's like you find things that you want to see in the same places. That means you don't have to wait in line. You don't have to get there.
And then also things that you don't necessarily You didn't actually go to see, but you're gonna find out what it's about. I knew nothing about Siren.
Right.
I know a little bit more about Siren. It was interesting. Mm-hmm. But it's probably not something I'm going to pick up watching in season 2.
Sure.
With so many other things.
And that is another part of the Comic-Con experience. It's sitting through panels that you may or may not have intended to catch something else. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's just there.
So Impulse, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's, supposedly taken from Jumper.
Right.
And that this is a new show. But they can't actually say jump. But yet no one could say, oh, well, pulse. Oh, my gosh, she pulses. Like, that would be just, like, a really easy way to do it.
Right.
I'm not sure. Maybe pulse is also...
trademarked, yeah.
And then you had Origin, which, that one looks very interesting. That one, to me, of them... Same person that did Event Horizon, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Which... kind of Origin is that very similar feel to it. These people that are starting new lives, trying to leave their past problems behind, and they're on this spaceship traveling to this new place, and they wake up and most of the crew is gone, and they're having to learn about each other, and there's something wrong with the ship, or there's something on the ship. And that one looked interesting. People were definitely on the edge of their seats during the little preview.
Yeah, very true, very true.
And then...
anything goes.
With John Barrowman.
He is a institution unto himself.
I don't understand how he doesn't have a weekly talk show or something like that right now, because he is just so entertaining. And... I got to see a friend that I hadn't seen for a very long time.
Which always makes it better when you get to see people that you know there.
My friend had said that, he got to meet him last year, and then when they go for questions, and I see that my friend's in line, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to video this. And so my friend gets up there to the mic, and John Barrowman just stops and takes a finger and motions for him to come up to him.
Should mention that her friend is a rather good-looking guy.
Well, he's also military and dressed as Magnum PI.
Right. Shorts.
And wearing it well. And so he's going up there, and he's getting up there, and him and John Barrowman do a little leg lock thing, and it was great. And then John Barrowman's starting to read all his tattoos and starting to undress his, unbutton his shirt to read look at the tattoos on his chest. Right. And it was a lot of fun. Not only John Barrowman himself was just a lot of fun. This was just icing on the cake to see my friend Murray, who I haven't seen for a very long time, interacting with John Barrowman, and John Barrowman kind of all over him. And then he had to do what he really wanted, which was last year he did not get video of John Barrowman telling him to bend over so he could sign his derriere, and he got video of it this year.
I know, he got the video. Win-win for everybody.
Not actually signing this year, but just pretending. But it was still that was just a added bonus to that experience.
Yeah. And that actually, the next panel kind of leads into that, and that one of the great things I like about Comic-Con is that it is really inclusive. I think people do a really good job of making sure that if you're shy, if you're nerdy, if you're, ethnic, if you're gay, whatever, that you're included. And so we went from John Barrowman, who's just this over-the-top showman and very inclusive, makes it very clear that inclusion is very important to him.
We left that room to go to the next panel.
Right.
We finally left the Indigo Ballroom.
We did.
For the day.
And we went to a very, very small comic book panel, which again was a very inclusive panel. It was about Sandman, which is Neil Gaiman's universe, and this is about the House of Whispers, one of the new series that he's curating in his Sandman universe, being written by a woman whom I remember her first name was Nola. I completely forgot her last name, but she is also writing a very inclusive ethnic, set in New Orleans, different sexualities, ethnicities, etc. And it's great to see that kind of diversity. And her panel was very small, but it was very interesting, and she was clearly a very interesting individual. And she won an award. She won a fantasy award, which was cool while we were there.
Yes.
So that was.
And she didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
That was actually that was the first of two that I got to see.
That's true. You saw 2 awards being given. I just saw that one.
Yeah.
We caught a couple more panels.
Well, we caught the end of Make Your Own Animated Avatar, which was kind of interesting to maybe see about if we can do it for this podcast.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Sure. Maybe we'll have the
also
Omega Beam avatars.
Seemed a little complicated as well.
It did.
And then I went to inside the voice actor studio, which was mainly about, hey, we're Bang Zoom and come take classes with us. This is what we can do for you. This is how we can help get you work.
Right.
Which I'd already heard about them before, and it's something that I'm still going to look into. And then
there was Dinner with Friends and Friday. So
and the nuns.
And the nuns.
Because while you're sitting there
That's
in
right.
the outside of the restaurant, creepy nuns that are passing out cards is always a bonus. and also, I think you're talking about crime going down, and what we get to see one of the pedicab drivers get pulled over by 2 cops on bicycles, which was kind of, I'm still wondering what was going down. It was almost a little
surreal.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he must have been in the wrong place at the wrong time or something, and so he got a fine, got a write-up for the way he was.
He had to pass his pedicab over to the next driver, and the next driver rode it away.
That's right.
So.
On the other hand, maybe one of the reasons the crime is so low is that law enforcement was definitely visible. Yes. We spoke to a couple cops inside the convention center. You saw them outside the convention center, as well as just staff. There was a lot of staff. Mm-hmm. So
not necessarily very knowledgeable staff,
right.
but
not necessarily very knowledgeable.
They seriously need to give the volunteers and the staff like a little cheat sheet of things that are happening or common answers to questions. Mm-hmm. Because I know that was my experience throughout Comic-Con. This is my first Comic-Con, and I'm trying to ask staff or volunteers about things, and they're pointing me in different directions, especially Friday morning, I think it was. Nobody
knew what was going on.
Yeah. So now we're at Friday.
Exactly.
I get on the bus. I go over early to see if maybe I can get into the Jack Ryan experience, where the line is already several hours long, and the guy is telling us, no, that unless you are one of the first 50 in this line, you're not going to experience the VR thing anyway.
Yeah, that's
and
a bummer.
I'm like, okay. And the other people with me in line are like, no, if you have access to Comic-Con, go to Comic-Con. So they helped me to make a decision, because I wasn't sure if I should just wait in the line. And they said, no, if you have she's like, if we had badges for today, we'd be over there.
Yeah.
And I get over there, and the line is the length of the convention center almost.
Right,
just
to get in the door.
In the front doors. But I ask someone where I'm supposed to go, and they say, oh, well, you have to go all the way down to door G. I get halfway, I get to like C or something. Mm-hmm. So maybe not halfway. And they're letting people in for if they don't have badges or if they have kids. And this one guy's like, you can just hang out with us in line, that's fine. But other people are just going through the line, trying to get in, and then just clustering.
Right.
So they're not even in the line, they're just hoping the doors will magically open. And then they can cut in front of all these other people. And I asked someone else, well, am I really supposed to go down to G? They said, no, you need to be in this line here. Ask someone else, well, yeah, you could have gone down to G, but those doors closed 5 minutes ago, which doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
But it was just very unclear, and there's got to be a better way to handle that.
Yeah, they have a lot of volunteers around, but they don't seem to all, some are handling the buses, and that's all they know. Some are handling, one thing or another, and that's all they know. Well,
these were people at the doors.
Yeah, you'd think
they'd know.
And
they didn't know anything about the doors.
Yeah, you'd think they'd know what was going on. I was waiting in another line because Friday morning was the morning that the shuttle system decided to not be efficient. So
Well, it was efficient when I got there at 8 a.m.
yeah,
It's your fault for leaving later.
I know. By 9 a.m., they had decided to stop working. So I had to wait over an hour for a shuttle. But, so what? We all got into the same panel. We spent all of Friday in Ballroom 20, which has about 4,500 seats. It's for larger panels, generally video. And we saw 3 world premieres on Friday.
Well, it started, though, with inside the Big Bang Theory writers' room, which you had 2 of the cast show up,
right.
which was kind of cool.
Mayim Bialik and Kanal, whose last name I do not remember. But, they were there along with the writers.
But you're missing something about Kanal. How could you forget? The mustache.
He had a pretty amazing twirly mustache.
Yes, and he was very entertaining. Very entertaining between the 2 of them. Because they basically said, oh, well, someone said, well, he's the only one that does not have a girlfriend right now. And someone said, well, is he going to get one? And you also had Jerry O'Connell as the moderator.
That's right. Sheldon's brother.
Which was interesting to me because we started with him as the moderator, and then we get all the way to the end of our time there with was it Cloak and...
It was a Death of Superman.
Death of Superman. And he's back to being the moderator again.
He wasn't the moderator, but he was the voice of Superman.
Well, he was
back
on the panel.
Yeah.
Well, he's back on the panel. But it was, he says, well, how come will he get a girlfriend? And the writer's like, well, maybe we'll ask, or he's like, well, maybe we'll ask him. And so he comes out and someone suggested, well, are Sheldon and Amy going to have a baby next year? And they said, well, maybe we'll ask her. And she came out. So that was kind of fun to see them. And then something that neither one of us has ever watched.
Right, Vikings.
Viking.
Is it Viking or Vikings?
Which was very interesting. It looked very interesting. And I was really impressed when I looked up the bio on one of the main leads, and she's like 3 black belts, and she has these schools that she's started for that, and very, very nice, strong woman,
real go-getter
for girls to look up to.
And she sounded really together. Some actors on these panels, they sound like they're maybe happy to be there, but also they don't really, think too much past what they're doing. Whereas she clearly sounded very together, and she had sort of a philosophy for everything she was doing, and it was nice.
So then you had the world premiere of Castle Rock.
Written by someone, one of the writers, Mark Bernardin, was both the moderator and someone that I've known of for a very long time, because one of the podcasts I listened to, Fat Man on Batman, he is the co-host of that. Plus, I saw him in a panel years ago because he also writes comics. And so I saw him on an Image Comics panel.
So this is going back into Stephen King's universe and back to Shawshank.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the previous warden has abdicated or left, and a new warden is coming in, and it's not all cupcakes and ice cream. Actually, it's probably the opposite. There's weird things happening. There have been weird things happening, and
the opposite
it's
of
Stephen King.
Cupcakes and ice cream. Yeah, one would almost say that shit was happening. The premiere that we saw, the first episode, I think sets up a lot of the mysteries, but it doesn't really go into them. And they gave us also a trailer after we saw the first one, sort of a trailer of the series. And that one, it gave you a hint of some of the more sort of supernatural stuff that was sort of hinted at in the premiere, but wasn't really gone into. So, yeah, that definitely looked interesting. The next panel was just lead actors.
Well, you have to say that Castle Rock had a really awesome cast.
It did.
Sissy Spacek and one of the brothers.
Right. I believe
the brothers.
Skarsgård. As I was saying at the time, I think there might be a law that you must put one of the Hemsworth brothers or one of the Skarsgård brothers in every project, or you have to pay a fine. So they evaded the fine by putting Bill Skarsgård in it. And he looked quite good.
Well, yeah, I liked him in Hemlock Grove.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were telling me that Hemlock Grove is kind of a precursor for Stranger Things.
Right, but that's where the
now
Duffer
I'm a little bit more
Brothers-
interested because in watching Stranger Things, yes, I admit it, I am not caught up on Stranger Things. It didn't stop me from buying some artwork in the exhibit hall on
That's
Wednesday
right.
night.
That's right. We did buy some great Stranger Things artwork. So the next panel, we're not going to go into detail on every panel, but the next one called
Brave Warriors.
Right, Entertainment Weekly's Brave Warriors.
Entertainment Weekly.
They were hosting the panel, and they basically found, and there's a bunch of panels like this. There's always panels like this, a lot of them, where various industry magazines or media outlets will just sort of gather popular actors together and just chat about their various projects and those are just designed to be fun. They ask questions to be a little bit embarrassing and or a little bit promotional, and they're fun. And they're Tom Ellis of Lucifer that we watched was there.
They were all hilarious.
Yeah, they were all very, very. They were all there to have a good time. They got along very well.
They definitely were there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think a couple times the moderator, she was blushing because
Right.
she started to say something and it came across as being wrong and sexual and tried to get herself out of it, and it just went deeper in and
So
then
to speak.
deeper. And the guys themselves also were.
Right.
But you have to say, the one actor talking about the snot sucker thingy,
Right.
and all of a sudden just popping one of those out, saying this is this, and this is
Right.
what he does for his kids,
Right.
and then I don't know if Anna Paquin would be mortified for what her husband said.
Right.
I mean, that is a dedicated mother.
That's right.
That she will just suck the snot out of her kid's nose if she has to do that. That is
Right.
one dedicated woman.
That's right. And in the end, Entertainment Weekly held like a little contest with the crowd and gave $1,000 to the charity of choice of one of the actors. So clearly it was just designed to be a warm and positive thing, and it was fun.
And the one that won was Batman.
That's right. It was the snot dude you just mentioned.
Because you have to put a Batman mask on and suck the snot out. Because Batman, it's okay if Batman sucks the snot out of your kid's nose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Parenting 101 by Genre Stars. And then there was an Amazon Prime showcase, which was a panel of showrunners of Amazon shows. So you had the showrunner for The Tick, which is a show that I've very much been enjoying, kind of a satire spoof send-off of the superhero genre. And you had the showrunner for Expanse and for Mr. Robot. Gail Ann Hurd was there for Lore. And you had the showrunner for Jack Ryan, who was there as well. And the guy for Mr. Robot was also there for a series called Homecoming, which is beginning,
Yes.
with Julia Roberts. I guess that's also like Lore, based on a podcast. And Neil Gaiman was there for Good Omens, so it was great. I love Neil Gaiman. He's one of my icons, and the fact that he was there made me happy. The fact that they showed a little sort of behind-the-scenes thing for Good Omens, which I'm so looking forward to.
I thought it was hilarious that David Tennant had not. Everyone else was like, no, I want to be in this. I want to be in this.
Yeah.
And David Tennant wasn't too sure. And that one of my favorite things that happened was during this panel. Neil Gaiman's talking about the fact that the voice for God.
Uh-huh.
And he gets a call one day and...
It wasn't a call.
Well, no. Didn't she call him and say...
No, she emailed him.
Oh, she emailed him
Yeah.
and said, I want to borrow your house in Scotland.
Yeah, and to put the perspective on, they had never met in person at this point.
And that person is?
Frances McDormand.
McDormand.
And he basically said, "Yeah, you can have the house. Oh, by the way."
I want you to be God. So I thought that was very entertaining, and that David Tennant hadn't read the book, and so he had to actually read the book.
Right.
But everyone else
wanted to do it because
Yes.
they loved the book so.
Yeah. So
And
that was really great.
And the capper on the panel was that after the showrunners had each talked about their projects and had a chance to talk about their process a bit, the showrunner for the Jack Ryan show ended the whole panel by saying, "Oh, by the way."
And here is the premiere.
Yeah.
Or the preview for Jack Ryan, and we got to watch the entire first episode.
Which was better than I expected. Not that I expected it not to be good, I just expected not to care. I've seen all the movies. I've seen the Jack Ryan films.
I haven't.
Yeah, I've seen the films, and they've all been fine. Some have been better than others, but none have been really bad. And they've all been fine. I've enjoyed them. But they weren't things that I walked away saying, wow, I really want to see a television series based on, this sort of American analyst come, action star. But the series made it look really engaging and really interesting. And I gotta say, when it's on Amazon, it worked. They bring it to Comic-Con to try and build up a buzz because they know that...
Well, that was Murray. Murray had told me that the entire... I think he got to do the VR experience.
Okay.
And it sounded very cool. They, put you in a helicopter and the helicopter crashes or something. Mm-hmm. So it was... They said it was pretty intense.
Yeah, so they have basically figured out that if you get the Comic-Con people to walk away podcasting, for example, or writing blogs and articles, telling their friends.
Facebook, Instagram.
And it can build a whole lot of anticipation for this show. And the show isn't airing until August sometime, but... I've already read, some blogs online where people have been talking in glowing terms about Jack Ryan, and the VR experience was part of it, but the premiere also had people really talking about the quality that went into it, and the actor as well, whose name I forgot, John something, sounding Eastern European, but...
Well, just...
All right, I will keep talking while through the magic of the internet... I think it's like John Krasinski or something like that.
Krasinski.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, he's not someone I think of as an action star, but he really looked the part. There's been a lot of actors who've played Jack Ryan. We've had Alec Baldwin, we've had Harrison Ford, we've had Ben Affleck, we've had Chris Pine, and John Krasinski really looked the part, and that's good. So I'm intrigued. And then after that, there's a TV show we've been watching, Marvel's Cloak and Dagger.
Which you've been on and off the fence
I've been
about.
on and off about. It hasn't been
Well, you like Cloak. You like the Cloak story.
I really like the Cloak story. Dagger, it's been a little bit more touch and go with me. I've been getting more interested the more into the series we've gotten, because the mystery is actually beginning to interest me as well as the character of Cloak. So I'd kind of reached the point where I said, okay, I'm going to finish out the 10 episodes. There's only 3 we haven't seen. 1 is aired, 2 more to go. And, okay, we'll see how it goes. I enjoyed the panel. See, this is some way I think panels help, because you get to hear a little bit deeper into it maybe than you see. Mm-hmm. And I think it helped me kind of understand what they're going for a bit more and where they're coming from and why it's set up the way it's set up. And it was amusing. They had a little, I don't know if it was truly organic or if it was a skit or whatever, but they made it seem like they just got renewed during the panel, which I thought was a nice way to kind of get excitement going in the panel. They did have a 10-second teaser where they just showed on screen, Cloak and Dagger Season 2.
Yeah,
will be massive. It was nothing. It was obviously something they could have done in Final Cut Pro that morning. But
it was nice to see, and it was nice to see the actors.
Right.
And then after that, we have the DC animated world premiere, Death of Superman.
And I love part of my con experience, whether it was WonderCon that we went to or Comic-Con, is I really love taking in... First of all, I love the DC animated series. As much as the DC live-action movies have sort of been very touch and go, the DC animated movies have been firing on all thrusters for nearly a decade. And part of that experience is going to Comic Cons and sitting with 4,500 people in this case and watching it in a huge crowd.
And this is one of two panels in which two of the panel members were married as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romijn was actually Lois Lane. So
right.
You have that whole little... The couples were the couple. Yeah.
And it was a really well done movie, and it was a little bit of a, I don't want to say do-over, but the very first movie that ever launched the DC animated universe 11 years ago or whatever was called Superman Doomsday. And that was the story of Death of Superman. And it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but you wouldn't have seen that movie and thought, wow, this is going to be a decade-long run of generally good films. So the fact that they wanted to do that one again as like their 10th anniversary movie makes sense, and they did it really well.
I thought they did. I really liked how they did the characters. Mm-hmm. I like how there is something... What I really liked was that even though it's insinuated that there was some sort of relationship between Wonder Woman and Superman, mm-hmm. but yet that's over and they are still these really good friends.
Yeah.
That the ending of a romantic relationship does not have to be the end of a friendship.
Right. Yeah, it was a very mature animated film, and I think that's the strength of the DC animated movies, that they're not, scare quotes, cartoons for kids, that they are adult stories and they are accessible, but at the same time they don't shy away from anything that wouldn't be exciting to a 9-year-old or whatever. And then Friday night, that was our Friday night entertainment, was the DC World premiere. And then Saturday, we started by taking in a few panels that we didn't necessarily intend to, but that is part of the Comic-Con experience.
Well, no, I went to a panel that I wanted to go to. It was the one panel that I really wanted to go to.
Right, at noon, but the couple before that were just where we happened to be seated.
Oh, yeah, I was just kind of like wandering around, kind of listening here and there mm-hmm. to see, just kind of kill a little bit of time, and then I listened to a little bit of one panel right beforehand, before the one that I was actually most wanting to listen to, which was the Ari Salvatore panel.
Yeah.
And he's the other one that received an award.
Very nice.
Because this is a very long time in coming, and so a lot of his fans thought that the Drizzt books were done. Mm-hmm. Because he's moving to a different publishing, and he had to get like releases and all of these other things to make sure it happened, and really anticipating the next book, which is Timeless, which is a book that he's wanted to write for a very long time. And I got the answer to a question that I wanted to know, because there's a series that he did, a young adult series he did with Gino, and I wanted to get the third book for my classroom, for my students. But trying to find it, it's like $80 for the hardcover. And they did such a limited release on this third book,
right,
that it's almost impossible to get, for a classroom especially. Mm-hmm. But it was really interesting to hear his journey as an author and his interaction with his editor. It was really kind of cool.
Very nice. And while you were at that, I was at also a writing panel, but more of a professional growth panel about fantasy literature, where there were 6 different fantasy authors talking about the genres of fantasy, subgenres and genres of fantasy, about how they go about the writing process, about the publishing industry, all that kind of stuff. And the questions also were from writers, generally related to the business and the process. And I always try and take in at least one panel at Comic-Con, sometimes a few, that are inspiring to me, and that they give me new grist for my mill, but also let me in on how others in the profession of writing, which I do, having written all these urban fantasy novels and science fiction novels, letting me in on how they go about doing what they do. And the rest of the day, we really devoted to the CW superhero shows.
After waiting in line.
Right. 2 hours and 20 minutes.
We got to the line, and we didn't know how long the line actually was.
Right.
I decided to go to the restroom, and I'm waiting in line for the restroom, and I get a message on my phone. Are you in line for the restroom? And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. A friend that I didn't know was there. And I said, where are you? And they said, oh, well, we're right here. We're towards the front of the line. And they had been waiting about 2.5 hours. And again, I just reconnected with this friend last, I think, December, but otherwise I hadn't seen this person for 20 years. So it was kind of cool.
The joy of Comic-Con.
So when we finally, 2.5 hours later ourselves, get into the room, we got to say hi to them before they decided to go off to the next adventure.
Right.
But they got in there and said, oh, well, the room is, ballroom 20 is 40% empty. Which made me wonder, okay, well, the line's moving. And the line's moving.
Right.
And the line's moving. So they finally decided just to go ahead and fill the ballroom. I didn't think that we were going to get in for Supergirl or Arrow.
And we did.
I thought we were going to be in that line until at least 4 o'clock.
Right.
But we were able to get in for all of the DC panels.
And they were all good. I mean, I enjoyed all 4 panels.
Oh, they were awesome. The interactions between all of the cast, the Supergirl cast, all of them were just wonderful.
Right.
I mean, the way that they talk to each other, the way they talk about working together, just even Katie McGrath, correcting the pronunciation of her name.
Sure.
The H is silent. And just all of it was just, I think of that panel and I just see smiles.
Exactly.
I see all of the cast smiling and joking with each other and this light atmosphere. And you showed me, I think that morning, you showed me an Instagram, I think, from Stephen Amell.
Right.
With him saying he's ready to go and all he's got was his bow. It's everything that he needs. And in Arrow, one of the first questions asked was by this little girl. She comes up, she says, well, last year you let me borrow this. And he's like, wait one moment. I have something for you. It's the only thing I've ever stolen from the set. And I think every single person in that room wished they were that little girl.
Exactly.
As he walks over to her and gives her a bow.
Yep. And it was just that kind of thing. I mean, these are people who understand their fan base. I mean, they clearly love what they do, and they're very grateful for and feel part of their fan base. And it's just great. It's great. It's great to be there, and it's great to hear about, the show and about where they see it going and all the rest. So, yeah, Arrow had a little issue in that the showrunner, I think the best way to say it is he was retired. There had been an issue where one of the people who kind of was overseeing all 4 turned out to have been harassing men and women very badly for a lot of years. And he was let go, but the showrunner for Arrow really stuck up for him. And he stuck up for him a little too vocally, I think. And so he was unceremoniously asked to just consult and to move to another area in the production company.
Okay.
So the woman that they put in charge is a woman who'd been there from the beginning. So this was not a stranger taking over the show, but there was kind of a sense of, where's the show going to go from here? It's not under the same hands. And it seemed to be, I was not crazy about actually the last season or so. So things seemed to be heading in, I would even say, maybe a little bit of a better direction than they've been in for a while. So that was good to see.
And then DC's Legends of Tomorrow, which, again, that's one that I'm not caught up with.
It's a comedy. They even said it. They even said flat out, it's a comedy.
They didn't expect it to be a comedy. It
Right.
became a comedy,
Right.
and they just went with it.
Right. I mean, come on. When you have basically a takeoff on Tickle Me Elmo, which they call Bebo, this big furry blue creature, you know, which originally is just a doll, but becomes like this avatar of power and wins the day over a demon. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with something serious.
And this is the other panel with a married couple.
That's right.
And then the one question I just loved was someone walks up and says, "If you could be any other superhero, who would you be?" And Brandon Routh starts to say Superman.
It's like, oh, I'd be super. Oh, wait.
Yeah, he's already done that.
Yeah. So those are all good. And of course, it ended with Flash and another great cast of people who work incredibly well together. I know that Tom and Grant Gustin, Tom Cavanaugh, Grant Gustin, they made a movie together, a short film together, and they're just great friends on and off. And you could tell that these people they adore each other.
Tom Cavanaugh is just hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, they asked them a question. I can't even remember what it was about. You know, what direction they would want the character to go, or whether there are things that they want the character to... He has his choice. He just comes up with all of these different versions of himself for the show.
Right. Exactly. And
they tap into the talent that they have. The creators tap into the talent that they have. Mm-hmm. They need to come up with other versions of him, and instead of just trying to do it themselves, they bring him in and say, "What do you got?"
Right. Yeah, it was a really good way. I've always wanted they've been doing the CW superhero block of these 4 shows. They've been doing it for a few years now. I'd never gone because the lines have always been too long, and there'd always been things I wanted to catch like right before the panel, and you can't go to a panel. I think Supergirl began at 3:30 in the afternoon, and if you're seeing a panel from like 2:30 to 3:30, you're not going to get in. But this time, there was the time to wait in line, and I'm very glad we did. Yeah,
and there was another comment. I can't remember what the comment was, but I remember it was entertaining. That was talking about having Brainiac and Cisco in the same room or something.
Right. One of the actors said, it was the actor who plays Brainiac who was saying, I really want to have some scenes with Cisco. And this was talking about the 4-part crossover where all the shows do a crossover. And that is another really fun aspect to the show, is that all 4 shows are in the same Arrowverse, because Arrow is the first. And so they all do these crossovers. And so all the actors of all the casts get to know each other and interact with each other. It really is. It's like a family. And I think those of us who watch the shows, you know, we end up kind of watching all of them because it becomes almost like just a family of sort of comic dramedy type superhero. It's just fun. It's just fantasy, and it's fun, and you know, they're great. And as the showrunners of Supergirl said, I mean, they do try and address the issues of the world. You know, they're not politically and preachy. It's not like, you know, you're seeing the Democratic Party, you know, have you know, stories in the show, but you know, they were clear that they wanted to address the world and the issues going on, and like the entire cast of DC's Legends of Tomorrow had pins that said, you know, immigrants welcome. You know, so they were, you know, subtly making their opinions known without sort of overtly shoving it down anybody's throat, which I thought was nice as well.
Oh, and then you also had Grant Gustin having to take his shoes off and slide around across the stage and try not to kill himself.
Right, do the superhero slide because somebody asked. Yeah, they were just a lot of fun. And we sort of ended our Comic-Con experience.
I think that... Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I think that the person that was like cheering at the end of it, the moderator that was cheering more for the fact that he didn't fall than the fact that he just did the slide.
Yeah, that's true, and it's fun. I mean, they just clearly enjoy themselves a lot and enjoy being at Comic-Con. You know, that's I think the thing. You know, you always end up, not always, but some panels end up with some actors who clearly are just, you know, writing out their contract. I remember when I saw the panel for Red. One of the actresses clearly did not want to be there. She only spoke when spoken to, and she did not enjoy herself in any way. But clearly all of the actors in the CW superhero shows, they got into it. Even the ones who are new to it.
There were a couple that were reserved. I mean, Jessica Parker Kennedy spoke up a little bit more.
Right. They're also new to the cast as
yeah.
well, so they probably don't have the dynamic as the ones who've been there for a few years.
And the one that plays Cecile, she was a little quieter.
Yeah.
But it was still. And then we left, went back down to the exhibit hall for a little bit, just to. We thought we had more time too, and the exhibit hall apparently closed at like 7:00.
Yeah, I did not expect that. Maybe it was so everybody could go see the masquerade.
So there were a couple really awesome Guillermo del Toro or some of the sculptures that were just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. And, it's like you were saying when we started the conversation, you can't see the entire exhibit hall in one sitting unless you're going to be there all day. So it was nice to go back for a little bit.
So then we decide that you told me about this wonderful thing that we could do, that we could get in line and sit in this hall and have free food and watch the masquerade.
Right, the masquerade party, which is held in a large open auditorium in the convention center.
We get in line around like 7:30 or whatever. I don't remember what time we got in line. And
about 7:30. You were about. That's about
then
right.
They'll let you in, and you can have a seat beforehand. And 8:00 came, and 8:00 went, and
8:00 being when the masquerade was supposed to begin.
Came, and 8:15 went, and then finally we get in, and they only have some tables, and they have a whole bunch of chairs in the middle, and some people are ducking underneath the ropes, and people are getting yelled at for ducking underneath the ropes, and so finally, eventually, we asked the lady, you went and grabbed a seat, and I went to go grab the food, which was a wide variety of cheese, pretzels, potato chips, cupcakes,
bread,
and
there were some stations with popcorn.
And there were some popcorn stations, and I had to wait for a cheese tray to get any and all fruit that was available.
Right.
And nachos. Yes. I think I would suggest, if you were doing this and you wanted to go see the masquerade, go get food elsewhere, bring it in, go sit in one of the other rooms where you don't have to wait for an hour in line.
Right.
One of the things that was nice about the masquerade was that we sat down. You found a seat at a table.
Right.
I get to the table and I look behind me and see people that I've known for 20 years.
Right.
So I got to say hello.
And you had some other friends who came by, and we met the people around us who we didn't already know.
And my other friends that we'd met in the hall earlier that day that were in line when I went to the bathroom were also there. So that was they came and joined us after.
Right.
So we were able to save a seat. And the people that were sitting with us at the table were fairly entertaining as well.
Right.
One of them was trying to collect all the little aliens.
Yeah.
So it was still
okay.
fun. It was okay. I definitely would just say, no, let's just go get some real food.
Right. Some people have complained, and validly so, about San Diego Comic-Con getting so much bigger. And in general, I don't mind how big it's gotten. I think it's allowed, as it's scaled up, I think, well. It's allowed more panels, more interesting things, and to me, that's not a problem. But it does show itself in some things, and the Masquerade Party was definitely one of the examples. That it's free. You don't pay for it. It's just something that they include if you want to participate. And when I was there years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it was a while ago, the line was not that long. They had a lot more. It was hors d'oeuvres. It wasn't like full meals, but they had a much bigger selection of food.
We did get to see a wonderful Mystique while we
That's
were
true.
in
Some
line.
great costuming.
I think the girl said she was only 15 or 16 years old, but part of her was military and the other half was already... It was like a transition from military person into Mystique.
Right.
Or Mystique into
right.
military person.
It was clearly, I think, inspired by the X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
No, was it X-Men First Class or was it Days of Future... No, I think it was Days of Future Past, where
Days of Future Past.
Mystique disguises herself as a military officer to rescue mutants. So yeah, and the Masquerade is fun to watch because the costuming is sometimes incredibly beautiful, and people really go all out. Some don't, some do.
I think it would have been better to see in one of the rooms.
Yeah.
Because it was so light in the hall or the atrium area that
Right.
it just was. The picture was a little bit washed out too.
Right,
and I think you would have been able to hear it better.
Right.
And then we abruptly left because they decided to, after the masquerade
Have
was
a
over,
dance party.
to have a big giant dance party where it was kind of loud and
Makes
a
it
little
impossible to
obnoxious.
talk to anybody or whatever, yeah.
So then we left and decided that just to kind of have a leisurely Sunday and head back home.
Yeah. And for those who follow my Instagram, you know that we had a lovely brunch overlooking the sea. And that was a great way to...
At some...
a golf course and
Golf course.
so what was it? Sonoma Beach? Solano
actually, no,
Beach?
I don't
Solano
think, no,
Beach.
I don't think it was... I think it was a little bit further up.
A little further?
It was
Okay.
further up.
So,
I just put into Google search Sunday buffets and kind of found one that had at least 4 stars. And
yeah.
it was interesting to go to this. I think it was called the Canyons.
Yeah, it was.
It was just some nice food.
Yeah,
It was definitely good food.
Living in the future where you can be on the road and look somewhere up to stop that has 4 stars on Yelp. So it is nice. So that was our Comic-Con experience. Any final thoughts?
Not really. Well, I'm sure I have lots of final thoughts, but
We've already rambled.
I've shared enough of them for right now.
Something you would do again?
Yes.
Okay. I would definitely too. And that is our panel. Thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks for chatting with me, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that was our discussion of Comic-Con International. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're curious about what we saw and some of the links to shows, you can find them in the show notes at theomegabeam.com/number 23. If you like this episode, please leave a review in the Apple Podcasts app or iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions for discussions that you'd like us to do, please email at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.